Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of .com Digital. Today, I have the incredible pleasure of hosting a very inspiring member of the Solidus team, Matt Bomhoff, or as we call him internally, the Chief Sniffer, the lead engineer working on TokenSniffer, an incredible tool for investors, regulators, and the ecosystem that essentially detects automatically hard-coded smart contract scams based on the code the moment they're deployed on the blockchain. He'll share more information, but I'll just mention that this is the second episode of a series launched by the Crypto Market Integrity Coalition's work stream for prevention of crime and fraud. So check out the other ones if you're interested in this space. Really excited for this conversation. TokenSniffer is a really heavily used website with more than 1 million visitors a month. And it's also an incredible example of the power of the transparency of the blockchain and the fact that once an asset is on the blockchain, if it is a scam, it can be detected automatically. On that and more, let's begin. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today, or as we call you internally at Solidus, welcome to the Chief Sniffer.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation. I think I'm not the only one. I think there are a lot of admirers out there for TokenSniffer, a lot of people who use it day to day. I also can report that I'm in Europe this week meeting with regulators and was in Washington last week. And a lot of people are really interested in the work you're doing. But instead of talking about it and all the plaudits, let me just ask you to begin by telling us what TokenSniffer is, a little bit of an overview, and what is its role in dealing with on-chain scams.
Sure. TokenSniffer is a free, publicly available website that assesses the safety of cryptocurrency tokens across 14 of the most popular blockchain networks. And tokens are programmable digital assets that anyone can create and trade for very little cost. And because public blockchains are anonymous and permissionless, most of the time the creator of the token is not known, and this has led to widespread fraud. So TokenSniffer detects the creation of these tokens and automatically identifies known scams and other risk factors. There are millions of these tokens in existence, and the rate of new tokens is growing rapidly. To date, TokenSniffer has identified 1.2 million scam tokens out of 6 million total tokens across the supported blockchains. And while the media up to now has focused attention on ransomware and romance scams, the scale of these token scams is massive and not nearly as well known. You can see over time the total tokens deployed is increasing, and with it, the rate of scams is increasing as well.
Yes, and generally, the more buzz, the more interest in crypto, the more scammers try to use it for their advantage. It's true, by the way, about every financial instrument and I guess industry in history. But clearly, there's a challenge here, and just kind of to clarify, one of the things that amazed me about it is the hard-coded element, the fact that it's in the smart contract, and the fact that basically what TokenSniffer does is create this new reality where we can automatically, thanks to the transparency on the blockchain, detect those scams. But before we go deeper into that, what are the most common types of scams? Kind of how do you break them? What are we talking about when we're talking about smart contract scams in a little bit more detail?
There are two main types of token scams, and TokenSniffer can detect both of these. The first type are known as hard rug pulls, and the second type as soft rug pulls. Hard rug pulls are what you just mentioned, are programmatic scams. They're cases where malicious code was placed in the token smart contract by the creator with the intent to defraud investors. The second type, soft rug pulls, are cases where the creator of the token suddenly removes the underlying liquidity. So the smart contract might appear to be safe. It doesn't have any intentional malicious code, but the underlying liquidity is removed. And in both of these cases, investors are left with worthless tokens while the creator runs off with the funds. This chart depicts a type of scam called a honeypot scam. It's a hard-coded malicious smart contract. The term honeypot refers to a type of scam where investors can purchase the token, but when they go to sell the token, they get an error message. and only the creator of the token can sell the token or mint tokens to themselves. And so this is why the price chart goes diagonally up with some occasional sells that are probably from the creator to simulate a normal price action, but it's clearly not normal price action. And then at some point, the creator decides to exit the scam, and that's where they remove liquidity either by just removing it from the liquidity pool directly or minting tokens to themselves and swapping those to remove the underlying liquidity. And that's why you see the price suddenly go to zero with that huge red bar.
There's kind of a few things that I want to emphasize here. First of all, really important to say that like many other kinds of fraud and scams that we see in crypto, this is not something that crypto invented. Rug pulls is a very broad term for many kinds of scams where essentially someone promises something and then runs away with the money or pulls the rug under people's feet. Soft rug pulls are basically that. What's one of the new things about how this can be executed in crypto by scammers is that you can actually automate that. It's literally in the code of the smart contract. I always kind of think about it simplistically in my non-technical mind as, literally there's a piece of the code that says you can deposit funds, you cannot withdraw them. And then there's another piece of code that says there's a backdoor, so it's easy to run away with the money. That's how I understand the honeypot. But that is really important to understand that it's not new. Like many other forms of crime and fraud and illicit activity, the blockchain allows new ways to do it, but also new ways to detect it. And maybe let's get even deeper into this question of detection. How do you do it? How? Tell us.
TokenSniffer differentiates between these two types of token scams in different ways. For hard rug pulls, these scammy smart contracts, it works very similarly to a virus scanner by comparing the token smart contract source code and bytecode against a database of thousands of scam code patterns that we have collected in our research over the last 4 years. And we actively track new scam contracts on a daily basis. For soft rug pulls, it's a little different. The site analyzes the token properties and computes a risk score representing the potential for a soft rug pull to occur. In cases where the score is 80 or above, a soft rug pull is basically impossible. This is a token that's been flagged as a scam for having malicious code present in the smart contract. It has the name BlackRock. Obviously, this is not an official BlackRock token, but scammers will often impersonate existing tokens or just other legitimate projects in hopes that investors will be confused and take them seriously. And in cases where the token isn't flagged and doesn't have the warning at the top showing the presence of malicious code, in cases where that's not present, there's a score shown below and the various properties of the token contract and its associated liquidity for estimating the risk involved of a rug pull occurring.
Oh, thank you for showing this. And I just want to emphasize, just like I emphasized in the opening, this is a free tool for individual investors. We're going to emphasize it over and over throughout the show because it's really important for us. We invest a lot, and obviously Solidus invests a lot, and of course you and your team, Matt, in making this available so that anyone who's interested in DeFi and investing in tokens can use this freely. I don't think people quite understand what a massive phenomenon this is. We published an extensive research back in 2022, and we keep on updating some of the numbers. Basically found out that 1 in 4 new tokens on average on the top 14 Ethereum chains that TokenSniffer operates on is a scam. And another part of our analysis revealed that in 2022, which as everyone knows was not a very good year for crypto with the Terra Luna collapse, FTX, etc. Even during that very, very rough year, more or less the same amount of people or individuals were impacted by these sort of scams as the same amount of people that were impacted by some of the collapses. This impacts a lot of people, and I often think about it as a major phenomenon of hidden theft. Um, but if we go back from the kind of the aggregated data down to some specific examples, can you tell us a little bit about some of TokenSniffer success or specific cases that you'd like to highlight in terms of how it helps prevent fraud and protect investors?
Sure. There's a well-known case from 2021 of a token called Squid Game. It's another case of a token impersonating a legitimate entity. In this case, the popular Netflix show, but it clearly was not an official token endorsed by Netflix or by the show. But it became quite popular. TokenSniffer from the beginning had assigned the token a score of 0 due to its use of proxy contract and for having unlocked liquidity. But however, the token became viral on social media. Many people invested, and the creators suddenly rug pulled the project, causing investor losses totaling around $3.4 million.
Right. And you can't stress enough how easy it can be for scammers to deploy these. And therefore, I think we cannot stress enough how important it is for people to, DYOR, do your own research, do their own research. And generally speaking, buzz and virality, I think, is a scammer's and manipulator's best friend. Specifically when things are very buzzy, you should be very careful because that's, it's conducive to people making rash decisions. And it's just not worth it. Take the few minutes, check it out on TokenSniffer, do some more research. Usually if a firm as large as BlackRock or any other, puts any product out there, it's very possible to verify that it's a real product. And it's just worth taking another minute. So TokenSniffer has been around for how long by now?
Since early 2021.
All right, so that's 4 years in a very, very dynamic space where a lot of this is happening. How has it impacted the broader industry in terms of reducing fraud, increasing standards of trust? Where do you see the impact?
Well, it was the first tool of its kind, and so the term sniffer is often used to describe similar tools. To date, it has discovered 1.2 million scam tokens, or around 20 to 25% of all tokens deployed, and protected investors from millions of dollars in losses. And since its creation, many similar competing tools have been released.
Right. And what about the feedback? I mean, what kind of feedback have you gotten from the industry over the years and I guess recently?
The site is still hugely popular with 1 million page views per month. And our results are incorporated into leading tools like Etherscan, DexScreener, and Nansen. And we receive a lot of feedback directly from users and indirectly on social media channels like X and Reddit, where the site is frequently recommended as an essential tool for investors.
Right. And, I can speak to it a little bit from my vantage point. It does happen often that I get contacted by, someone who's listing a token who is not happy about the score. It's an issue for their fundraising or when they're trying to launch, because it really is a standard for safety in smart contract tokens. And of course, we maintain a very, very. I know you and your team maintain a very strict. Have to maintain that standard very, very strictly. I think also, if I remember correctly, sometimes the scammers themselves find ways to reach out and give us feedback. Is that something you could talk about?
Yeah, that's right. Because of the site's popularity, because it is a de facto standard for evaluating token security, often scammers will use the site to try to get a good score on their token and to test if their smart contract can bypass the detection capabilities for malicious code. And so we've had some cases where we've observed scammers using the sites, testing contracts one after the other. We've even blocked their IP addresses at various times and had some kind of indirect interactions with them.
All right. If I remember correctly, some of those included some very bad words, which we don't have to repeat here. But when you make a scammer angry, usually it's something that we're pleased about. Usually symbolizes good things. So I guess what about challenges? Obviously, there's an endless race between criminals and those trying to identify them and catch them. Where do you see kind of like the biggest challenges for TokenSniffer throughout the years and today?
A major challenge is that the scale of this type of fraud and the number of entities involved. We've identified dozens of serial scammers who are continually changing how they implement these scams. So it's an ongoing game of cat and mouse, which we closely track on a daily basis. And because blockchains are programmable, a scammer can write a program to automate the entire process of creating a token, and thus can create thousands of scams for very little cost in a short period of time. And this diagram on the right depicts follow the money analysis, where we trace the scammer's activity through all of the intermediate wallets that they use. One, to try to hide their past activity, and two, to deploy various scam tokens with. And as you can see, in just a matter of a month or less, thousands of tokens can be created in an automated fashion, and can be fully automated to where they create the token, simulate some fake trades on the token to try to simulate an upward price action, and then withdraw the underlying funds. And many of these scam tokens, the whole process that I just described happens in minutes or just a few hours.
It's obviously, I think it's important for me to always emphasize, and it's something that I always share with with some of our regulatory partners and generally with the industry. Needless to say, this is some pretty there's a lot of pretty disturbing information there. Obviously, this is happening a lot. You're also showing how it can be done very easily and at a low cost and be replicated very easily. However, and obviously the rates of this are high, and I mentioned some of those numbers before. However, there's also, to me, TokenSniffer is really one of the prime examples for the incredible opportunity that finance on blockchain provides to actually create cleaner finance over time. And the key here is that these are automatically detectable scams. If I compare this, so they're easy to perpetrate, and they're not easy to detect because it took a long time to build this technology and perfect it. But there are tools today that make it possible to, like TokenSniffer, that make it possible to automatically detect a scam the moment it is deployed on a blockchain. Now, if you compare that to traditional finance, ultimately, and we all know that unfortunately, traditional finance is also, rid with scams and issues and fraud. At the end of the day, in traditional finance, for a scam, for law enforcement to find out about a scam, enough people have to get scammed to report it, and then something has to be done about it. Here, we actually TokenSniffer actually demonstrates the opportunity to immediately flag a scam just based on the code that's transparent on the blockchain. Again, going back to this point of the power that the blockchain's transparency can provide for fighting crime. And it is something that I know that law enforcement and regulators definitely appreciate and are increasingly learning about. Again, there are other examples for it, a lot of other examples for it in our work, but I think that TokenSniffer and this automatic detection of hard-coded scams is perhaps one of the strongest for the opportunity that blockchain brings to bring more integrity over time to finance. So I think I repeated what I said about 3 times, so I hope the message was conveyed. But as we move forward, let's think about the people listening. A lot of them are compliance and risk professionals, but a lot of them are also just people who are interested in crypto and want to get smarter about how they're investing. What advice would you give to those users, to investors, who are looking to protect themselves and are using tools like TokenSniffer?
There are a few ways that investors can protect themselves from these scams. The first is to be cautious purchasing newly created tokens from anonymous sources, or what is known in the meme coin business as aping in. That behavior is very risky. Most scams are exited within minutes or hours of the token creation. So you mentioned earlier about doing your own research. That's really important with these types of products.
And you know what? Also, I just want to emphasize there as well that maybe some people don't realize, but some of these scams, some of these tokens can sometimes be rug pulled after $20 were invested because they're so easy to replicate. That can be a good profit for a scammer. And I often think about those scams because I feel like someone who invested $20 in a token oftentimes doesn't have much more than that to invest. But again, like even if it's $20, you got to be careful because it's worthwhile for the scammers. But sorry for interrupting you. Any other advice?
There are a lot of users, obviously, from the US of our website, but we see quite a few users from developing countries who are in that situation you described, where they're trying to get ahead in some way. They might be in a country where the fiat currency is heavily inflated, that has a high rate of inflation, and they're trying to use crypto as a way to store value or to get ahead. And $20 to them is a really big investment.
I'll add to that one of the most painful things about those instances is that those are also really the cases where the promise of crypto digital assets is probably the greatest, right? At the end of the day, in places like the United States, credit cards work quite well, banks work very well, but there are a lot of places where financial accessibility is a huge challenge. By the way, even in the United States, there are people who still are unbanked, but there are a lot of places where financial accessibility is a huge challenge. And crypto's promise there is the greatest in terms of providing more ways for people to own their own money, even if they cannot trust the bank, even if the local currency is highly inflated. Again, this is another reason that in some ways, even sometimes it could be a small amount of money. To me, those are very painful. But what about other advice? Any other important tidbits for investors?
Yeah, the second thing I would say is to always use TokenSniffer to scan the contract address to ensure that the token is not explicitly flagged as a scam and that the score is 80 or above, which ensures that the smart contract is open source, meaning that it can be scanned by the system for malicious code, and that also the liquidity is sufficiently protected from removal. Finally, I'd like for investors to understand that there are tens of thousands of these tokens created each day. Most of them are heavily manipulated by pump and dump groups and trading bots. And while you may see a token promoted on social media, know that those channels are heavily influenced by bots and paid promoters as well.
Right. So if I summarize your advice, because I think it's really important, one of the key takeaways here. First of all, just generally, it's probably not smart to buy a token that was just created and is being offered by an anonymous source. People make their own choices, but that's usually, let's call it, that in itself is a high risk factor. Second of all, and again, we've been emphasizing it over and over, but TokenSniffer is a free tool to use for individual investors. You can just very easily, within minutes, get a sense, at least. Even if you want to make a quick decision, usually that's not what's gonna, a minute is not what's gonna make the difference in terms of when you invested, but it can make all the difference in terms of preventing you from investing in something that is, just not a good investment, and that will lead to your money being lost. And finally, really important to understand that there are a lot of these tokens, specifically in the realm of meme tokens, of meme tokens and altcoins of various kinds. There are thousands of them. There's an enormous amount created every day, and you really want to be careful and understand that there's a lot of risk there. One of the most beautiful things about TokenSniffer to me is how it simplified that risk. And simplification of risk is such an important part of making DeFi, a safe environment for everyone. Because if we want people to have direct access to complex financial services like investments, with no middleman, you do need, and and you want people who don't read code necessarily or are not extremely savvy in finance or technology to to have to participate in this. It's really important to give them tools that allows them to do that, simply. I don't read code, and therefore I use the TokenSniffer almost every time before I decide to invest or buy a token, and I encourage everyone else to do that. But this point about simplification of risk for the average person is critical if we want to really invite that average person to into DeFi. So as we're kind of reaching the end of our time. What's in store for TokenSniffer and Solidus Labs? What's coming up? What can the many fans and users of TokenSniffer, and hopefully the many new ones after this show and in the coming months, as we continue as the market hopefully continues to be bullish, what can we expect from TokenSniffer?
We have a few new features that we're about to release that we're really excited about. The first is an LLM-based scam detection tool that's essentially an AI smart contract auditor that can detect and isolate scam code in a smart contract. The second is an interactive wallet activity explorer, and it allows users to track the on-chain behavior of a token creator and see, have they created other tokens? Have they created any scam tokens? Are they interacting with any flagged entities on the blockchain? The last feature is support for the Solana blockchain, which has emerged as the number one chain for new tokens within the last year or two.
Right. So keeping with the times, definitely. I mean, LLMs and large language models, and generally generative AI, obviously is something that is affecting all of our work. I think it's also important to say that, unfortunately, it's also a tool that helps scammers. It's easier to create, I coded a Pac-Man with ChatGPT, so obviously scammers with a little bit more experience can code, scammy tokens easily. It makes it easier for them to replicate it, but it's also a really powerful tool for the detection. And then, of course, it's just really cool that the interactive activity explorer is really cool because it will give this. It takes the simplification of understanding the risk and its connections a step further. And finally, of course, Solana, has really been rising as a major chain. So it makes total sense, and sounds like there's a lot to expect. By the way, Matt, naturally, we are very focused here on investors and users, probably the most vulnerable stakeholders in the ecosystem. And again, I emphasized a bunch of times that this is a free tool specifically for them. But there are also a lot of other ways in which this tool can be used. How do you see this tool used beyond just the investors themselves?
I think it's very useful to regulators and law enforcement who are interested in identifying whether tokens are a scam or, as we showed in one of the slides, being able to get a holistic view of a scammer's activity, where we can provide a report of all of the scam tokens that they deployed, a profit estimate, of total volume estimate, and so that would be a key tool for them in their work. Secondly, I could see TokenSniffer, as it's already been incorporated into some popular platforms, but I could see it being incorporated more into DEXs and centralized exchanges as well to prevent enabling this type of scam activity.
Right. I mean, and I think we can share that this is a very powerful investigative tool, and that there are various regulators who use it actively, to try and combat this. So I'm really excited to see how TokenSniffer continues to grow and be used by more people to help create cleaner finance. I guess before we finish, one question that we didn't prepare for. So I'll put you in the spotlight, throw you under the bus a little bit, as they say. Why TokenSniffer? Where did the name come from?
Can I cuss on this channel? Is that allowed?
You know what? For you, yes, special permission. Go for it.
Uh, a lot of these tokens, just due to all the things we've been talking about, are referred to as shitcoins. And so TokenSniffer was a tongue-in-cheek name to refer to this process of evaluating a token by sniffing it. And if it smells bad, don't buy it.
It's all about sniffing the shit and filtering out of the good stuff. By the way, I was expecting something much worse when you asked for permission. I'm kind of, well, I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, but I'm glad I gave you the permission. Anyway, Matt, it has been such a pleasure. I will emphasize again before we finish, TokenSniffer is a free tool. It's really important for us at Solidus. We invest a lot in making sure it continues to be free and it continues to grow and improve. There are also ways, I should say, there are also enterprise clients for TokenSniffer. A lot of our exchange clients and other platforms, use this database in order to make sure that they don't allow the siphoning of funds, because oftentimes when a scam happens, the only way, anyone could cash out is through a centralized, fiat on-ramp platform. So just to say, there are a lot of ways people use this, and please reach out. We help platforms automate their token listing procedures and just make sure that your crypto business is not unintentionally enabling some of this. And of course, again, I go back to the users. This is a brilliant tool that allows to simply understand risk very quickly for investors. So please use it. Matt, Chief Sniffer, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.